Well, if you are interested in wholesaling and the term driving for dollars, you're going to be in for a treat here today because we have Zack Boothe on the call. And Zack has really been doing a great job blessing as many people as he can uh, on how he has accomplished what he has, which is um, pretty miraculous, frankly. Most of your business is done through driving for dollars, right, Zack?
Yeah, it is. It's until about a few months ago, it was 100% of my wholesaling revenue. Yeah.
Yeah, so before we get things kicked off, I always want to make sure everybody has your contact information because you really do a great job teaching this whole platform and how to go about what you do. So if you go over to dfdmastery.com, that's probably stands for driving for dollars mastery.com. You can find more information from Zack and his team associated with what he can offer. But I really wanted to make sure we also plug your YouTube channel because that's coming up very soon where you're going to start off a new series. You're going to take $1,000, move into a new market and turn it into 40,000 in 40 days. So that'd be
Yes.
quite the task to watch.
Yep. We're flying out January 12th. Got the film crew lined up. Pretty excited about that. The reason I'm doing that is yes, I coach, yes, I help people, but I do limit how many people I coach. It's by application only. And I got into coaching because I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to bless lives. I didn't grow up with money, and it was such an amazing thing to go from window washing to where I'm at now. And I wanted to share that success and bless other people's lives and not just keep it to myself. And so this challenge is a way for me to show other people what it takes, and they can do it as well. And so
Mm.
I'm really, really excited about this. So you can find it on my YouTube channel, which is also DFD Mastery. But if you go to my website, dfdmastery.com, there's a section or a tab that says social media. And there's a link to my YouTube channel and Instagram and Facebook and all those places. So
Yeah, well, let's start at the beginning if we can, because I mean
yep.
that's you dropped that first piece of history there. You went from being a window cleaner to real
Yep.
estate investing.
Yeah.
Um, what made you make that jump? A lot of people point to a book. There was a mindset change there that to make such a drastic change in your life.
Yeah. Well, I've always kind of been entrepreneurial,
Hmm.
and so I started a window washing business when I was 17. And from the outside looking in, it looked like I was successful, right? But I had 3 trucks and 11 employees and a business partner, and I had a YouTube channel. If you search window washing on YouTube, you're going to find me like top 5 videos.
Hmm.
Which is kind of funny. And I didn't mean to. It was just a tutorial video to train employees. I think it has over 10 million views now, which is just silly. um I guess I've always liked teaching and coaching, and it just that tutorial video just blew up, and I actually ended up on the History Channel because of it.
Hmm.
YouTube was doing there was a documentary that was done on YouTube and the phenomenon of it. And so anyways, from the outside looking in, I was having all this success, but actually I wasn't making very much money. I was risking my life all the time, and high ladders, just crazy, stupid stuff. Like I got a notification the other day from 5 years ago, me climbing a flagpole to feed for like $35 to feed a cord through the pulley system. And I'm up
Oh,
there
wow.
like 30 feet. Yeah. And this was like 5 years ago. I'm just like I see stuff like that and it makes me sick. And, the I wanted something different, and I had bought a duplex for my first property when I first got married, and I was like 22, and I'm 30. I'm going to be 32 here in a couple months, and so I bought this property, and I was living in one side and renting the other, and it was paying my mortgage and then some. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is way easier money than washing windows. I want to do more real estate. I want to buy some more, but then they wanted 25% down for my second property, and I didn't have 25% down. And then I also didn't have debt to income ratios. I kept hitting all these obstacles to do more rentals. And so then I was like, well, shoot, how do other people do it? And so I started reading and I started listening to podcasts just like this. And I was like trying to figure out ways to become successful. And then I learned about something called creative financing, seller financing. And
Mm,
so I paid $10,000 for my first course. And I not only never got a lead, but I never did a deal. And I got discouraged. I got frustrated. And I thought maybe that all these guys that teach and talk, they just charge money, but don't really help anybody.
mhm,
Um, and so I kind of had given up, but then something happened that really like was a gut check, and I'm so grateful for it. My little boy was born, and I have a 6-year-old little boy, and now he's 6, right? But when he was born, the day he was born, instead of like focusing on like the most beautiful moment of my life, becoming a father, um, sorry, I don't want to get emotional, but every time I tell the story, I get emotional because it was really upsetting to me that I couldn't focus on that. I was just focusing on how can I pay the medical bills,
mhm,
and it sucked. Like still to this day, it bothers me big time. Like I'm emotional um, because I'm upset with myself that I couldn't be there in the moment.
mhm,
Um, and I didn't want that. I didn't want that for myself. I didn't want that for my wife. I didn't want that for my future children. And I wanted something more. And so it kind of lit a fire under me to change things. And so I got into doing more research, and then I found out about wholesaling. And I was like, aha, that's it. That's exactly how I'm going to do it. And I've got another mentor. I paid $9,000. And within a month and a half after getting that mentor, I did my first wholesale deal. I made 10 grand. And then that first fiscal year, which is about 8 months, I did that first deal April of 2017. Within that first year, I had done about $115,000 in income. And then next year, just shy of $500,000. The year after that, 1.2 million. So
mm. Yeah, well, that's quite a story. I mean, and I think not a lot of enough of us take a minute and realize and take a look at what we're sacrificing for what our day to day work or struggle.
yeah,
That it's kind of one of those things too. I brought up a number of times that we have our society. We've almost romanticized the concept of the grind and the hustle, but in the end, it's not. There's a bigger cost there than I don't
yeah.
think people have on their radar.
Yeah, I was working so hard as a window washer. I mean, I had employees and I was working so very hard. And, we had in gross sales, we had done just shy of $500,000 actually the year I walked away from it. But I wasn't making more than $50,000-$60,000 a year.
Hmm.
And it just wasn't quite what I like. And some people are like, wow, it's pretty good money. And like, you should have been grateful. And I was grateful. I was. But we live in a country where the sky's the limits, and we should go for our dreams. And I've seen poverty that doesn't exist here. I served a mission in Sao Paulo, Brazil, when I was between 19 and 21, and I saw true poverty like I had never imagined. And
Hmm.
I remember the first time I walked through a true ghetto, I sobbed like a baby, and I couldn't believe what I had seen. I mean, I saw organized crime and prostitution and children drinking alcohol. Like I saw things that I never would have imagined. Um, and that experience really opened up my eyes that I wanted to take advantage of all the blessings that we have here. Like I wanted to live the American dream. Like I realized why people want to be here. And, so I think we have a moral obligation to do the best we can and accomplish the goals that we can, and do the best for our families that we can.
Hmm. No,
So
that's great, and I don't know. I mean that's very inspiring. You should be the realization. I know compared to you're still young compared to me at this point. I mean, I'm your senior by a couple decades, but I wish I knew what you know now, the back then.
yeah. Well, I
So,
appreciate that. That's quite the compliment. Thank you.
so the so let's get into the real estate thing because you're. It sounds like you got into this trying to get that passive income, that golden concept of passive income and that
Yeah.
mailbox money, if you will, getting those buy and hold rentals. But you really focus on the wholesaling now, right?
Yeah, I actually did build up a whole bunch of rentals and I sold them all because I love coaching. I got to the point where like I had this automated wholesaling business that was generating tons of money with my team, and I had all these rentals as well. And I kept having issues, more issues for my rentals than I was having for my wholesaling business. And I was like, well, let's sell them. So I sold them all. I eventually will pick up more real estate, but I actually have different plans than just focusing on cash flow. We can maybe talk about that. But what happened was, I got into wholesaling and I did that 6 figures, and I was like, wow, I just made more money in my first like 8 months of this than I did ever make like profit wise, like I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then at the beginning of 2018, I was struggling to find deals. Like those first 2 months were really dry. And my marketing that I had been doing, like I was doing list source lists and buying lists and tax delinquent and stuff. And I was just really struggling to find leads. And so I knew I needed something. So I started digging. That's when I found Driving for Dollars. Right. And Driving for Dollars back then is not what it is today. There's been a lot of new apps and technologies to make it fast and efficient. But I was driving around, writing down addresses, looking them up on county records and doing it that way. And I pulled like 70 addresses and did a deal. And I was like, whew, that was cool. Let's do some more of this. And then throughout that year, my system progressed. But by the end of that year, we had done $500,000, and it was all from Driving for Dollars, just shy of $500,000. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. This is more money than I've ever had ever. Like, this is just, it was so liberating. I went to the bank and I wrote a check for over $52,000 and paid off debts. And I took my wife to Hawaii, and we spent 2 weeks in Hawaii. And then we went and stayed. My wife's actually Brazilian. And we went back to Brazil for a month, and it was amazing to go back. I hadn't been back since I had served a mission there. And, my children got to see, her grandparents and be a part of that. And my little boy speaking Portuguese and playing with the kids, and it was just so fulfilling to me. Like having that kind of freedom was incredible. And I'm a major outdoorsman. So I went to Alaska, and like I was having like the time of my life in 2018. But there was something that happened that was really cool. I was like, well, if I did this, why don't I shoot for more? Like, what more can I do? But I didn't know how to do more. I felt like I had tapped out my potential as a wholesaler. But I had heard of people doing $1 million a year from it. And I was like, well, how could I even do $1 million a year? To me, that was like more money I ever imagined. I remember not washing windows, but mowing lawns with my father. We had, my dad worked a full-time job, and then we had a lawn mowing business growing up. And that's what I did every day after work. I started working at a very young age. And I remember asking my dad, like, we're mowing lawns for these giant mansions. And I remember asking my dad, like, are these people millionaires? And like, how much money do these people have? And I asked questions about money to my dad, and, you know, hardworking, awesome person. I love my dad, and he does very well for himself now, but as kids, with all the kids, and we definitely didn't have that much. And, which was so awesome, because it really made me think, and it made me work, and it made me have to dig. So I'm grateful for those opportunities. I'm not saying poor me, but it allowed me to like see that other people have more and they can do more. So maybe I could as well one day. So then I was thinking about making $1 million in a year. And I remember thinking, wow, someone's a millionaire and I might do that in a year. So it was almost kind of like this psychological block of like, hey, like that's too much. Like you're trying too hard kind of thing. And so I was kind of like grasping for ways to do that. And I had a friend invite me to do a self-help journal called Living Your Best Year Ever by Darren Hardy. And in there, it talks about whatever your goals, you create 3 big goals. And it talks about the importance of giving away whatever you want to receive. So one of my big goals that year was to generate $1 million. And I had no idea how to do that, but I knew I had to give it away. I knew I had to give away $1 million that year. And I was like, well, crap, how do I give away $1 million? And I actually talked to my wife, like I was like concerned about it. I was like internalizing this, like I really want to make this a reality. How do I give away $1 million? And then it hit me like I need to teach other people my marketing system, right? and put $1 million in students' pockets. And so I brought on 10 students, my guinea pigs, right? And that was at the very, very end of 2018. And I started teaching people. And one of my first students, his first deal with me, he made $113,000 profit from driving for dollar sleep. Scott Dallinger, right? And I started having these students, student after student, just crushing it for my system. And the coolest thing ever happened. I found so much more fulfillment by helping these other people than I did from my own business. And I became addicted to coaching. Like I started bringing on more students, and because I started bringing on more students, that required more of my own time. And so then it forced me to like build a team, my wholesaling team, because I had to keep the money coming in because I wasn't getting rich from coaching. And so I got good at building a team, and had to learn how to build a team. And by the end of that year, we did $1.2 million in my business, but I was coaching like crazy. And, one of my very first students, Michael McLeish, posted on his Facebook group the other day that since he started wholesaling, he's done over $1 million. Just that one student. He was my very first student I signed up. So when I saw that post, like, sorry, I'm a big ball baby, but, I saw that post. It was like, holy shit. Like, I can't believe the first student I signed up did $1 million in less than 2 years. And like those moments, like those are so much more fulfilling to me and than doing deals myself. Like, yeah, I love making money. Yes, I love serving my family. That's the whole point of why I got into this. But I just feel so immensely grateful that I have my cake and I get to eat it too. Do you know what I mean? I'm fulfilled, but I also have money. And so it's just pretty cool that was how I got into coaching. It was definitely by accident. And now I coach quite a bit. I also have other resources, as I've gotten bigger and done more. There's been a lot of people that would like to learn and be served by what I do. And so I actually built a full-blown free wholesaling course. Like the wholesaling course, I think is better than the $9,000 wholesaling course I got. So that's actually under free resources under my website too, if people are interested in it. So.
Yeah. So make sure that the website again is dfdmastery.com. So, a couple of things that struck me with what you've been saying there. I haven't read or taken advantage of this Living Your Best Year Ever journal or book or program.
It's a journal. Yeah. So it's like the first 100 pages, you put together your 3 goals, and it talks about the important, like how to accomplish them. And then it does a weekly journal.
Yeah. So a couple of things that stand out from what you said is it sounds similar to the stuff that I have read. There's the 4, what is it? I even have the book here. The 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. And one of my favorite books is The Go-Giver.
Amazing book. Yeah. My mentor made it a requirement to read that book to be a student.
Yeah. Yeah. So, The Go-Giver, especially, that's one of those things that really is something that I find extremely interesting, is what you're essentially saying and proving out. One of the theories in there is that the more people you reach, the more people you help, because it's the go-giver. The more people you help, the more you're going to benefit yourself.
Yeah. And like I don't want people to think I'm like this big ball baby or like this big emotional person, but and I'm not actually not, but like it's so weird because just like that book talks about, the go-giver is like whatever you give, you receive. And I'm getting so much more than just money. Like I am so full as a person, like, and I'm so grateful for that. Like I couldn't be happier with what's happened from helping other people. It's just amazing. I'm 100% sold on the I mean, it's been said 1,000 different ways, right? You reap what you sow, right? Karma, like it's 100% real, right? I don't know if it's God's law, universal law, you can call it whatever you want, right? But it's real. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this has been a great part of this conversation, but people are going to want to, and especially since you give away some of this training for free on your website,
Yeah.
let's dive into a few things because, and we're going to focus on wholesaling on this episode because, I mean, that's your expertise, and
Yeah.
frankly, that's what most people they seem to focus on when they first get into real estate investing because they're it's starry-eyed. The concept of getting houses with no money down. Um, I mean, there used to be late night commercials claiming that they're
Mhm.
going to teach you how to do this kind of thing. Um, but so let's start with a brand new student, somebody who's never done wholesaling before, just to get through the mindset that this is actually possible. Like, where would somebody start? And I know that's a pretty broad question, but I mean, that's where the analysis paralysis, we have to break through that analysis paralysis.
Yeah. So my big thing is like you said, the mindset, right? Belief that it can be done. And so my YouTube channel, I share the success story of all my students, right? I interview them and I share that success story. And you can reach out to every single one of those people, right? Like they're real
Mhm.
people, like reach out to them. I want you to understand that this is real, that your story can be their story. Your story can be my story. Because if you have that belief, it's a lot easier to take some of those painful steps, right? Let me give you an example. The pain of not having money to pay my medical bills when my son was born, that was more painful than the work I had to do,
Mhm.
right? So when I found out that it was possible, I was willing to do the grind. I was willing to spend the money on marketing. I was willing to hire and pay for a mentor. I was really willing to go for it, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I put that stuff on credit cards, guys. I didn't have $19,000 to pay for mentors. And then that's not even close to what I paid for marketing, right? To figure this stuff out because I tried so long on my own as well. Threw away a lot of money, right? and and so like you first have to believe it to your core that it can be possible, because it's going to require work. It's going to require that you get out of your comfort zone, and maybe you're a little reserved and you're embarrassed to talk to people, you're afraid to call people. Fine, that's painful. I'm not saying it's not, but you have to realize that the pain of not having success is greater, right, than the pain of doing the work.
Well,
So
you're pretty much describing a, I don't know if it's a psychological principle of humans. I mean, we will have a tendency of reacting to pain versus versus proactively working towards pleasure. I mean,
oh
we
yeah.
will, and we're always in more of a reactive state versus a proactive state.
Yeah. Animals take the path of least resistance. Always. Always. So I was in Alaska this last summer, like I said, fishing. And I was in Southeast Alaska. I was in a place called Petersburg, Alaska. And I'm fly fishing for these king salmon, and there's bald eagles everywhere. It's just beautiful, right? And if you've ever been there, there's like a 10-20 foot section of grass before you hit the ocean, and then there's really thick dense forest, right? Black pine, just thick jungle, moss everywhere, right? And just on the outside and on the inside of the trees, there is a beaten path from the bears and the deer and the moose. And it's just these giant divots in the moss where they've
Mhm.
taken these trails over and over and over, because those animals want to take path of least resistance, and we do that as well, right? And so understanding that really makes you really builds motivation. And so when you don't want to get up and go work, you don't want to get up and go do your driving, you don't want to get up and do your cold calls, like you don't feel like it, I want you to do what Tony Robbins teaches, right? Is to actually think about the pain if you continually be lazy. Think about the pain of letting your family down. Think about the pain of, your wife looking at you and being disappointed and disgusted with you to the point where she doesn't want to be with you anymore. Like take it to an extreme and feel that pain, because that pain is going to drive you to get out of bed and to do the work, more so than the pleasure of a $10,000 check that you may not necessarily have to feed your family,
Mhm.
right? So
No.
pain is definitely a massive, massive motivator.
Right. So and you basically you focus. We've already mentioned you already focused on the driving for dollars, or we brought that up. You
Mhm.
know, so you're that new student now. You've decided you've gotten into the right mindset that this is possible. We don't have a lot of money to do any marketing, so you would push them towards driving for dollars, right?
If you had a lot of money, I'd push you to driving for dollars. If you had no money, I'd push you to driving for dollars. I believe it is the best marketing channel that exists for finding off-market discounted properties, whether you want to wholesale them, flip them, buy and hold them. I don't care. It is the best strategy. It doesn't matter if it's multifamily, if it's single family, it is the best deal. I just had a student, Michael Brown, yesterday, closed on the biggest wholesale deal of any of my students. It's a multifamily property. Um, he just made $114,500 from it. Okay.
Mm,
So when someone wants to sell a house at a discount, right? Like as wholesalers, we are not convincing people that selling to us is in their best interest. We're
right.
finding people that we serve, right? So for example, I actually went and did a, a, an experiment to prove this point, right? That people trade convenience for price, even affluent people. So I went
Hmm.
to a super well off, nice neighborhood, $500,000 to $1 million houses, and I went door to door and I said, "Hey, I have a mobile pawn shop. Do you have anything you'd like to get rid of or sell?" I spent $500 an hour and a half, and I doubled that money. Right. I bought a go-kart, I bought some furniture. And the crazy thing is, like 2 weeks later, the lady called me because I gave her my number and I got a piece of furniture for $50 and someone in my office, I don't want to deal with it, but he sold it for 350.
Mm,
Right. And so people trade convenience for price. And so my mentor taught me that we're like a pawn shop for houses. And so if someone wants to get rid of their property because it's a pain point for them, it's like a thorn in their side, do you think they're going to go want to mow the lawn and fertilize and pick the weeds, and if some shingles blow off they might throw on a tarp, right? They're going to do the bare minimum to maintain that property because it's a thorn in their side. So you
mm,
can actually see properties that are a potential thorn in someone's side. And so that's why driving for dollars in general is the best list, because you only create an Excel spreadsheet of properties that have physical signs of neglect and that have the highest chance of someone wanting to just unload them, right? That, and then on top of that is you get to pinpoint the exact areas, the exact, neighborhoods, streets, and the exact house on every street corner, right? The other thing is no one has your exact same list. No one,
mhm,
even if there's other people driving for dollars, no one is sending the exact same postcards, exact same calling scripts, and the exact same text messages and voicemail drops and all those things to your list. You may have ones and twosies here and there that you're competing with other investors, but I wouldn't teach this to people in my own market like I do if I felt like it was going to hurt me, right? It's just funny. The more I teach, the more money I make. Like, it's not hurting me, right? It's because no one has my exact same list, and even if they're driving, they're not going to tag them the same time frame I am.
okay, so somebody's in the car. They're going to be
Mm-hmm.
driving for dollars. What are some of those signs that they should be looking for that maybe somebody new to this might miss? Because it's easy to spot that house that has overgrown grass and the shingles are falling off. But are there other signs that they should be looking for on a house
Yeah.
that they maybe should add to that list?
Yeah, we tag anything, any physical signs of neglect, right? Cracked windows with some duct tape on them, you know, newspapers piled up, any of those things. So it's funny that you ask that, because it's a very common question I get. So I actually give that away for free because I want to serve people, right? So if you go to my YouTube channel, I have a YouTube video called Driving for Dollars Criteria, and I actually go for a drive with my main driver. I only have one driver that adds 2,000 properties a week, by the way. And he's part-time hours. So it's a very efficient system, but I go for a drive with him. It's kind of funny. We actually get pulled over, but there's a link in the show notes as well as on my website. So dfdmastery.com, under free resources, I give you my driving for dollars criteria. So exactly what we look for. I call it my cheat sheet. So that lists out everything that we're looking for as we're out driving. So you guys can access that as well.
Cool. So now that they've collected a list,
Hmm.
What are you doing now to contact those people? Are you doing mail drops? Are you doing postcard, yellow letters? You
Yeah.
mentioned voicemail drops. I mean, do you hit
Yeah.
them with all of the above? What do you start with?
I've tested a whole bunch of different things. Currently, I do text messaging, cold calling, and postcards, right? We make money off of all of them. But if I was just starting, I would say pick one. And I love postcards for people that are just starting. That's what I teach my students. That's what I talk about in my wholesaling course, my free one, and my mastery program, because it's you don't have to have any negotiation skills, any sales skills, any communication skills to send a postcard, right? And
Mhm.
so it's very easy to like identify house that's a turd or that's got issues, and then you send a postcard to them. If they want to sell it, they call it, right? So I would say postcards is definitely my favorite system. And they say, oh well, it doesn't work in high end markets like California and those bull crap, right? It does. You just have a crappy marketing list.
Mhm.
Like Aaron Gaunt, fireman in California, one of my students, right? His first deal, $80,000, was able to quit being a fireman and do wholesaling full time, right? He actually came out fishing with me a couple weeks ago. So this works in high end markets, low end markets. Postcards work. You just have to have a good list.
So one of the things that I wanted to touch on, and we'll have to back up just a hair, is that this has got some volume associated with this, right? You
Yes.
probably are going to have to be driving for dollars and sending out how many. Do you have an odds like if we're
Yep.
I'm going to just say
I can
like
get.
with the list source list, I'm lucky if
Mhm,
I'm getting maybe a 1% response rate if I'm
mhm.
lucky. With what you're proposing here, what are you typically seeing?
So response rates are going to be the same, right? They're going to be anywhere between 0.5% to 2% response rate with the driving for dollars list. But I can break down the cost to do a deal. So this is the math. If you guys want to get a pen and paper, this is how I respond to this question. So look at your low end housing in your market, right? Get on Zillow, go to sold properties, and find out what those lower end houses are on average. So if you're in Indianapolis, it might be $50,000 to $80,000, right? Where if you're in Utah, that might be 250 on the low end, right?
Mm.
In Tampa, my other market, that might be 170, 150. And so figure out what your lower income, the average price of those houses are once they're sold. Once you have that number, times that by zero point 0.1, which will give you 10%. That's what your average wholesale fee should be. Okay. So once you will find your average wholesale deal in your market, then you can figure out about how much it's going to cost you to find that. I suggest you spend no more than 25 cents to make a dollar, or 25%. So for example, if your average wholesale fee you find should be around $10,000, it's going to cost you about $2,500 or less in marketing to find the deal. And obviously you need to be decent at negotiations and that kind of stuff. And I teach that to my students, right? But we're spending we're spending anywhere between, I think last time I looked at it a couple days ago, we're at about 13 cents to make a dollar is where we're
Mm.
at with my marketing. Right. And so if you do the math, let's say you spend $2,500, right, to do a $10,000 deal. It's about 40 to 50 cents a postcard. So you're going to have to send about 5,000 postcards to find those properties. So you're going to have to find like anywhere between, like I said, 2,500 properties to 5,000 properties to find a deal at $10,000. Right.
Mhm.
So you're going to have to add volume of any physical science of neglect. So that's the math.
Right. No, that's awesome. So, okay, so they've received a response. And I hate to
Okay.
we're this is very high level, so I'm sure we're not going to be able to get into the weeds too far here tonight. And I'm sure you have some videos on this, but I always get the next question somebody asks me is, okay, uh, somebody called me. Now, what do I say?
Great question. You say, great question. You build a relationship with the person, right?
Hmm.
Let me explain why. If someone has a house they want to sell, and you're trying to buy the house, and their brother's trying to buy the house, and you both make an offer of 100,000 on the property, who's going to get the deal?
The one they
The
like.
The one they like, the brother, right? The one they have a relationship. So if you're competing with another investor and the other investor just shows up, gives a number, lowball number, doesn't give a crap about the seller, and you show up and you build a relationship and you know why they're selling and what's going on, and you say, well, you probably could get more if you list it with an agent. Like, why don't you go that route? And you give them options, and they go, no, I just want to sell it as is. It's like, okay, that's exactly what I could do. I think I'm a fit for you then. What's your time frame? What are you trying to do? What do you need? Like, and you actually build a relationship and care about that person, and actually not just be a greedy investor, and like actually serve that person. Guess who's going to get the deal? The person that cares, right?
Mm-hmm.
So get out of your head of like, I need money, right? Get out of your own greedy head and serve and love people, right? Be a go-giver, because if you don't do that, you won't get deals. You won't.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
we
that's
tell people all the time, hey, we're not a fit. Right? Like, I literally had my cousin, literally, right? Brent, he calls me. He says, Zach, I want to sell my house. I was like, okay, cool. What are you trying to do? Do you need advice? Well, I want you to buy it. Well, brother, I buy houses at massive discounts, right? Like, I'm an investor. Why don't you just list it? Bro, I don't want to. I've got a job. I got to move. I need to have it done now. Okay, well, I can help you. I just want you to know that I'm going to make money. Is that okay? Oh, 100%, man. I know what you do. Okay, cool. Like my
mm-hmm.
cousin, right? So there are people that want speed and convenience for their house, and that's who you're trying to find. And if you explain that to people, they're going to just trust you even more and be like, wow, this dude's got integrity. This person cares. So that's what I would suggest, is like understanding the people, talking to the people, time frames, condition of the house. Why don't they just fix it up and list it? Like understand that person, have a conversation with them, care about
Yeah.
them like I care about my cousin, right? That's what I'd
No,
say.
I can't emphasize that enough, Zach. I mean, you hit the nail on the head so much. I run into too many people who spend too much time trying to keep like they don't mention realtor as if the person you're talking to doesn't know what that is.
Yeah.
Or it's
And if
like
they don't, they should know. Like, you have an obligation to have some integrity and have a heart, right?
well exactly. But when you ask that question, why don't you list it with a realtor? That's going to be your best option. You will already start to build even a deeper relationship there, and they're going to trust you to tell you exactly what's going on. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's that they're not calling you more times than not. Most of those people know what you do, and they're calling you, and they've taken that action for a reason, and they're not going to tell you that reason likely right off the bat. So once you have a discounted property under contract, we're not going to go into details on paperwork and everything associated with this. I mean, you better talk to check your local laws for how this works.
Yep.
But once you find a discounted property, how do you get the best dollar or the best? How do you sell it now? Like you,
Well, yep. If you've done your work and followed my steps that I give you, whether you're an actual student of mine or you have access to my free course, you have done your job of building your cash buyers list before you get to this point. Okay. So we
Mhm.
build cash buyers list first. If you don't have a buyer lined up, you're not going to be able to sell it. Right. But one of the big mistakes a lot of people make is they get 3 or 4 buyers and they go, okay, great, I'm done. Right.
Mhm.
And then they become an employee to this cash buyer. And this cash buyer pays way less than you would get if you sent it out to all your cash buyers, right? My first wholesale deal I ever did, I had been building a cash buyers list and going to auctions and doing all this work to build my cash buyers list. And I only got one person to respond, but he had a 1031 tax exchange. So he was willing to pay more than any of the other investors were because of tax purposes. And
Mhm.
so where I never would have made money on that deal, I ended up making 10 grand because I had a motivated buyer and a motivated seller. Right.
Mhm.
So if you're doing the work, you're going to have buyers and get them to pay as much as possible for your deals.
Right. That is something that I find really refreshing with you, Zach, because I've had other people on the show who have actually pushed the concept that you find the deal and the money will come, like
Yes.
it comes out of thin air or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
There's actually a really cool show. It's called Undercover Billionaire. It's the dude. He takes I can't remember what his name is. Anyways, he takes $100 and his goal is to turn it into $1 million company in 90 days, right? Guy's
Mm,
freaking amazing. He's like sleeping in his car, crazy. So he's trying to turn that $100 into more money so he can like build this company. And he talks about how important it is, if you're going to pawn anything, you have a buyer lined up first before you then go and do all the work to get the thing, right? So remember, we're a pawn shop for houses. So before we go get the thing, a discounted contract, right? We get a buyer. You want to get a buyer first. That is key, key, key. Like the billionaire knew,
right.
right? It
Right.
is a business principle.
Yeah. No, that's awesome advice. So we come to the end of this here now, and I always ask, we've covered a lot of ground here tonight. Is there a question that you wished I would have asked?
Um, no, I think this has been such an awesome conversation. The biggest thing that I would like to mention one more time, and is that we have, January here in a couple months, I'm going to Florida, right? And I've already mentioned this, but I wanted to mention it again. Is I'm going to take $1,000 and turn it into 40 grand in 40 days. Right. And I'm doing this because I want to show people that they can do it. Right. I'm going to have a film crew. I'm going to share it with the world. And I kind of got this idea from the undercover billionaire that takes $100 and turns it
Hmm.
into something, because he wanted to show that the American dream is alive and well. And I wanted to show other people that as well, even with all of the turmoil that our country's been seeing lately, that we can be successful. And there's no excuse for us not to be. And we should take advantage of these opportunities. And then also along the way, bless and serve other people and make an impact. Right. That's my whole purpose behind being on this podcast and being a coach, is because I want to serve and give back. And so I hope you guys tune in, subscribe to my YouTube channel, as those episodes start coming out. You can enjoy those and learn and grow as well. So
So just a reminder, dfdmastery.com. But we always end with a few takeaways here from the show. Um, First of all, it looks like I'm buying yet another book, Living Your Best Year Ever. And I got to check that out. That sounds really interesting. Um, any physical sign of neglect when you're finding this, from establishing this list, and you better get ready to start driving, because I think that there's a lot of misconceptions that you drive, find something, send out a postcard, and you're putting too many eggs in that one basket. You gotta build that list. Um, I really like how transparent you are with that seller. Um, Ask those questions, make sure they understand what you do and the options that are available to them. Actually
yep.
be that go giver in that scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and then build that cash buyers list first. Um, and I really appreciate you being on the show and being as transparent as you were. You mentioned a couple times about how emotional you got. That's just me. I identify that as being a sincere, just sincerity. I really appreciate that. So I really think this was a great conversation. I wish you the best success. I am definitely subscribing to this YouTube channel. I gotta see you pull this off, and I know you will.
I hope so. I hope I don't fail, right? Because I'm telling everyone about it before I start. But I think more than anything, even if I fail, I believe that people will see what the input is, right?
Right.
What the input is. So
Exactly. So dfdmastery.com. Jeff, definitely reach out to Zack if it's a good fit. And it sounds like there's a lot of great free resources there. So it's definitely worth that investment. So thank you so much, Zack. And I hope we can chat again in the near future.
love it. Thank you so much.